محمد Salawat. We're going to begin the program with the recitation of the Holy Qur'an. Please welcome with loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد. إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأتي بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز. ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدع مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى. إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة. ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير. وما يستوي الأعمى والبصير ولا الظلمات ولا النور ولا الظل ولا الحرور. وما يستوي الأحياء ولا الأموات. إن الله يسمع من يشاء وما أنت بمسمع من في القبور. إن أنت إلا نذير. إنا أرسلناك بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا. وإن من أمة إلا خلا فيها نذير. وإن يكذبوك فقد كذب الذين من قبلهم جاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات وبالزبر وبالكتاب المنير. ثم أخذت الذين كفروا فكيف كان نكير. ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب سود. ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. إن الله عزيز غفور. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Thank you very much for that beautiful recitation. Brothers and sisters, the next part of the program is the main talk by Dr. Amina Inloes. Please welcome her to continue her series on the environmental ethics in Islam with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dr. Amina Inloes is an American scholar, researcher, educator, public speaker, translator, and she has written several books on the subject of Shi'ism. We continue with her series on environmental ethics in Islam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب النجاة الأمة غنيم مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. The angels shed tears and mourned in sorrow, and could not bear to see the innocent's plight. Silence is pierced by the grief of those left behind. In all of history, this must be the darkest night. The sun is hiding, scared to come out. In the darkness of such sadness, it is drowned. How can it shine on their scattered remains? Where can these people of light be found? But now their loved ones have died, the remaining innocents tied and chained. From this night we will remember evermore the sacrifice and martyrdom of Imam Hussein. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا بني آدم خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد وكلوا واشربوا ولا تسرفوا إنه لا يحب المسرفين. O children of Adam, wear your adornment at every place of worship, and eat and drink, but do not be wasteful. God loves not the wasteful. Sadaqallahu al-Ali al-Azim. We continue our discussion about what Islam has to offer to the solution to the environmental crisis on a faith-based level. And one of the values we oftentimes talk about in Islam is the importance of avoiding israf. Israf, of course, being wastefulness, extravagant use, extravagant spending, taking more than you need and just throwing it away, especially when other people are in need. And this, of course, should be fairly obvious that it is critical to the situation we are in because it is a culture of consumerism and aggressive capitalism, and bluntly put, taking and wasting that has led in part to where we are now, especially when it comes to things like disposables and plastics and so forth. But I'm not here to give the science. I'm here to talk about Islamic thought. Oftentimes when we talk about israf or extravagant wastefulness, we do so on a personal level, on a small scale level. Like I pour this water down the drain and it's israf. Or I throw away part of a sandwich and it is israf. And it's true, that is israf. And we all can and should do our bit. Not only because if the world does their bit, it will be a better place, but also because we are the ones who stand before Allah, responsible before ourselves. I most likely will not be responsible before Allah with respect to genetic engineering of food, for example. And I'm not passing judgment on all of these things I'm talking about. I'm just giving an example. I'm not going to stand before Allah and answer for something a big corporation, a nation state, etc. is doing. I mean, I may have some part to play in that. Perhaps Allah could say, why didn't you stand up? Why didn't you try to do something? But the point is, we are responsible before Allah for our own acts. And it is narrated also that not being wasteful in our lives does, inshallah, lead to a good livelihood. However, today I would like to talk about israf on a larger scale. And that is basically the corporate, sometimes the political, the big players. Because we see the Holy Qur'an is extremely harsh on musrifin, those who are wasteful, extravagantly wasteful. And it's harsh on them in a way that suggests this is something then far more than just throwing away a bit of rice or a bit of water or that sort of thing. For example, in the ayah that I just mentioned, it says that Allah does not love the musrifin. Allah does not love the extravagantly wasteful. That's actually a very serious statement. When it says that Allah does not love a people, it means Allah is removing some of his blessings or his grace from them. He's distancing themselves from them. And Allah is too merciful to distance himself from us just because we bought something on Amazon and we didn't use it. Who else does Allah not love in the Qur'an? These are a few examples. Allah does not love those who transgress in warfare. Islam is realistic. There's an understanding in Qur'an and hadith that warfare happens. But Allah makes it clear in the Holy Qur'an that those who go beyond bounds, they're aggressors in warfare. Allah does not love these people. They have lost divine grace. Allah does not love people who are proud, arrogant, boastful, and self-deluded. Now, of course, unfortunately, this could be individuals, all of present company exempted, of course. However, who are these characteristics of? The first and foremost one is shaitan, to be arrogant, to be self-deceived, and more or less most tyrants, past and present, also have this sense of self-importance. They oftentimes have a deluded sense about their infallibility. They can do whatever they want. They're more important than the people they are lording themselves over. These are people whom Allah does not love. Allah does not love traitors, people who engage in treachery. Allah does not love mufsideen, those who cause corruption or cause fasad, keeping in mind that the Quranic meaning of fasad is a sort of general corruption or destruction of society. I'm aware in some contexts in the modern era that's maybe limited a little bit more to personal morality, but that's not what the Qur'an is saying. Those who corrupt and destroy society, Allah does not love the zalimeen. Allah does not love the oppressors. These are all very heavy groups of people whom Allah does not love, alongside the musrifin, those who are extravagantly wasteful. So we can get a sense from this already that when Allah is talking about israf, it's not only talking about the personal israf, but a sort of broader state-sponsored level, if you will. Because if you think about it, when we look at this type of behavior, Muawiyah, for example, was someone who would fill his stomach while the people around him were hungry. Or, unfortunately, to go back in history, and I do apologize for this example, but, in ancient Rome, it said that the nobility, used to have these banquets, they'd lie down, they'd stuff themselves. And this is the culture, Muawiyah was inheriting, sort of a regional culture. They would stuff themselves, and then they would make themselves throw up so they could eat more, while again, most of the people are going hungry. So this is definitely under the category of behavior which Allah does not love, and which is on par with zalimeen and treachery and transgression in warfare and so forth. It is particularly relevant that Allah has mentioned the mufsideen, those who cause fasad or corruption in society, because as many of us are probably, unfortunately, familiar with now, one of the ayat in the Holy Qur'an about fasad is used to describe the environmental situation. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. Fasad or corruption has appeared on the land and on the sea because of what men's hands have earned. This is an interesting phrase, by the way. So we get the idea that there is, in our day and age, literally corruption in the land and on the sea. We're becoming direly aware of how important our oceans are to the rest of the life on the planet, and also what is happening in them. So there is corruption on the land and in the sea because of what our hands have earned. Now, to be honest, if I were just to translate that off the top of my head, I would probably just say what our hands have done or our hands have wrought, because that's the idea. We have done things that have corrupted the land and the sea. But I do think actually earned does fit quite well in our current situation, because it is the economic system that has become dominant in the world that has led to this corruption on the land and the sea. So there's definitely an economic aspect to it. However, this ayah also gives us a hopeful message that we may taste some of what we have done. So we're not even getting the full impact of what we've put out towards the planet, but we're tasting some effects of it, that we might return, that we might come back from destroying the planet, that we might come back from harming the creation of Allah, that we might come back from causing fasad on earth through this sort of israf. So, this is one of the many ayat of the Holy Qur'an that is talking about fasad, and we were talking about the ayat about israf. There are others. I'm not going to mention all of them, but just to paint a picture of what the Holy Qur'an says, among the things that the Holy Qur'an says about israf is, O humankind, eat of what is lawful and good. So we have an understanding in Islam that, as we oftentimes say, I don't really need to repeat this, but we understand Islam is idealized as a moderate path. Neither do we need to deprive ourselves of all of the good things that Allah has created, nor are we supposed to overindulge or be extravagant, but we use what we need and what is beneficial for us. And then if we have excess, we share it with others who are in need. That's basically the ideology or the idea behind Islam and material wealth in a nutshell. If one wants to build that a bit more, one can say that the idea behind wealth and enjoying Allah's blessings is to create an environment that is conducive for the growth of our souls, to understand Allah, for the soul to gain understanding, to come closer to Allah and get ready, to graduate to the next phase of its existence after we're done with the material life, and also to create a world that's conducive for other people to do that as well. Whether that be ethically, spiritually, or materially. One of the reasons, of course, among the reasons to fight poverty is simply because it's suffering. But also, we can't expect people to be focusing on these matters of religion if they are, basically having a very difficult existence. But in any case, we do understand Islam has a moderate sort of view about wealth, and we are allowed to eat of what is lawful and good. So the ayah says, eat of what is lawful and good, and do not follow in the footsteps of shaitan. He is a clear enemy to you. So this does suggest that if we are going beyond that, which might include eating of the things that are not lawful and good, and there's a lot of ways we could discuss that, outside of merely, what is halal food, that we are somehow following in the footsteps of shaitan, and we are somehow being enemies to ourselves in the way that shaitan is an enemy to ourselves. The musrifin, those who commit israf, are described multiple times in the Qur'an as being in the hellfire. And there's an ayah that says the wasteful are the brethren of the shayateen. They're the brothers of the lesser satans. So let's put all of this together. The musrifin, and again, I mean this on a broader scale, like deforestation, dumping nuclear waste. The musrifin are in hell. One ayah says they reject the signs of their Lord. So the people who act like this are the ones who deny Allah, and they deny argument from design, for example, or they would deny what we were talking about yesterday, the spiritual awareness and worth of other beings and existence in the natural universe. By extension, it seems the musrifin follow in the footsteps of shaitan. They are not loved by Allah. They are the brethren of shaitan, and they are destroyers. This is pretty heavy. So basically, the Quran is making a very close link to shaitan, shayateen, and musrifin on a broad scale. So I'm emphasizing, corporate interests, multinational interests, not just me who threw away an extra sheet of paper or something. Now, this could be taken literally, and it could be taken metaphorically, and it's not my place here to say which is true. I'm simply saying this is what the Holy Quran says, and we can see these dynamics acting in our time. It could very well be literally. I mean, shaitan could be literally, behind some of the people in our present time, pushing them to do certain wasteful and destructive acts, or to push for a very sort of aggressive consumerism and spreading that culture around the world. That very well could be shaitan. Or they could simply be doing it perfectly well on their own. Why do we need Iblis when we have certain people in humanity? The Quran speaks about humans and jinn as being shayateen. So maybe these people are just acting like Iblis, if you will. But in any case, they are doing the things that shaitan does. And what does shaitan do? Shaitan, in the Quran and Hadith, primarily deceives and affects people through illusions and delusions and whispering. It seems that, in general, that is Shaitan's main way of interacting with the human people, setting aside any narrations and so forth about what lesser shaitans or shayateen might do. It seems like Shaitan himself tends to rely primarily on deception. Shaitan also tends to deceive us through temptation, through acting on impulse, whether the impulse is greed or anger or carnal desires or whatever thing that can be taken advantage of. We're encouraged to act on the wrong impulses. Sometimes we act on the right impulse, the divine impulse, and we give charity impulsively or something, and that's good. But Shaitan sometimes has us act on the wrong impulse. So shaitan causes suffering through illusions, delusions, encouraging people's lesser impulses, destroys, manipulates. What does this sound like? Basically, this sounds like the economic culture that has been promoted in some parts of the world. The basic principle behind the sort of heavy-handed sort of capitalism we have today is to generate need in people, to increase production as much as possible and to make people feel like they need things when they don't. And this is done through illusion and through delusion. There's a there is a whole science to generating need nowadays. I mean, if you think about, for those of us who've been around the sun a few times now, if you think of 20 or 30 years ago even, the things we didn't even have that we didn't know we needed until we were told that we needed them. And of course, society does change. I'm not criticizing everything we have. Well, there's a lot we could say about the environmental impact of phones and the internet and so forth. Nonetheless, most of us would say these things are social needs in our reality today. I do know a professor who tried to live without a mobile phone, and it's almost impossible because you need to get a passcode for everything, as some of us were talking about yesterday. So there is this sense of putting forth an illusion to make people want or need things that they may not actually want or need. people sometimes are pushed, to act on their whims, to buy things that they may not want or need. This in turn, it causes individual suffering. It causes debt. Sometimes it causes guilt. If nothing else, it causes us to be overabsorbed in the material life. And as we were talking about yesterday, when we are overabsorbed in the physical world, this is what blocks us from the other world. And of course, there's any other number of human problems. You have labor abuse, the division of countries into the global north and the global south, etc. Depletion of resources. Many products are addictive. One of the products being boycotted right now, if nothing else, you have to acknowledge their business model. By that, I'm referring to the coffee company. I remember when the coffee company first came out, people just kind of looked at it, what is this? It wasn't like customary for people to go to the coffee company. And then people began to try it, and they would come back again and again and again. And why is that? It's a highly addictive product. So someone had the smart idea, and of course I'm being a bit sarcastic there, but it was a smart business model to make an addictive product, and there's any other number of addictive products there, some of which are far worse for us than coffee. So there are many, many ways in which we suffer from these sorts of delusions, the same way that people suffer from shaitan. And of course, nowadays, it's even more, it's more. I'll just put it that way. We have more illusions. We have more delusions because of the way social media and artificial intelligence interacting with social media is used to manipulate people to spend. I mean, I do not consider artificial intelligence to be evil. I do consider it to be a technology that can be used for good or ill, depending on how one uses it, like any other technology. But when used in the service of corporate entities behaving like shayateen, this can greatly intensify the effect. And it's much more difficult for us to block this, because we have it with us, at our home all the time. Although, just as Allah says that the shaitan has no authority over the faithful, similarly, the shayateen of excessive consumerism, the generation of need, advertising, and so forth, can at least be shielded against through having a solid spiritual system, having a solid ethical system, and just being aware, being awake, paying attention to what messages we're getting. Are we being manipulated? How are we being responding? And thinking about what we should do. And of course, when we talk about israf, some people also talk about time. I had an interesting conversation the other day. We agreed, me and the other person, that time is money. But is money time? And that's an interesting thing to think about, because on the one hand, yes, if you have money, you can buy yourself time. You can get an airplane, for example, and instead of a train, or you can hire someone to take care of things. So to some degree, money is time. But of course, when we reach our final moments, no amount of money can buy you your time. That is the end. And what is it that Imam Hussein alayhi salam said on the night of Ashura? As he was mending his sword, he said, "Ya dahru, uffin laka min khalili, kam laka bil ashraqi wal asiri." Shame on you, time. Shame on you as a friend. From the time of day's dawning till the time it does end, how many a companion will be a corpse, cold, stilled, dead. Time won't be pleased with a stand-in instead. The matter will rest with the great, mighty one. And everything living must go too, one by one. And the first to go was Muslim ibn Aqil. He was the one who left this world before the Imam even arrived in Karbala. Assalamu alayka ya Muslim ibn Aqil, ya Safir al-Hussein. I bear witness that you strove your utmost to help Imam Hussein all the way to the very end, when you were thrown off the rooftop of the palace of Ibn Ziyad. When Muslim came to Kufa, he was so sincere. He was so sincere and eager to see the people ready to give their allegiance to Imam Hussein. And not one person, not two people, not 10 people or 1,000, But 18,000 names were registered in support of Imam Hussein. Muslim was so happy. He wrote to Imam Hussein. He said, "Oh, my master, Kufa is ready for you. They are ready for you to come and lead them out of tyranny. Oh, Imam, hurry to Kufa. The people are all waiting for you." But we know what happened next. Muslim was in Masjid al-Kufa. The tyrant Ibn Ziyad had come to Kufa and was scaring the people. Some people he threatened to kill. Some people he threatened to send into poverty. Some people he threatened their families. He threatened them all sorts of ways and bribed others until one by one the 18,000 became 17,000 and 16,000 and 10,000 and 1,000 and 100 until Muslim was with only a fraction of his supporters in Masjid al-Kufa. It was the evening prayer. He said the evening prayer, and he could hear sounds behind him, footsteps, rustling, as if people were leaving, turning away. And then he looked back, and he was alone. This was Masjid al-Kufa, one of the holiest sites in the world. Those of you who've been to Masjid al-Kufa, you know it's one of the sites of the prophets. You know, there's a beautiful angelic presence there. And yet Masjid al-Kufa had witnessed so much treachery, and Allah loves not the treacherous. O Masjid al-Kufa, scene of the foulest scheme, in ruku and sajda betrayed they the purest scene. What kind of faith had they in a masjid they could slay, the brother of Mustafa, Sayyidi Haydar? This was what had befallen Kufa before, and now Muslim was alone. He was walking the streets of Kufa. It was dark. He could not find his way. Those of you who've been to Najaf and Kufa know how it can get after dark. There are animals threatening from the wilds. And the tyrant was threatening with his soldiers. He was trying to find Muslim and bring him in. And eventually they succeeded. Muslim fought, but he fought valiantly. But still, he was not able to escape an army, because who can escape an army? Blood was gushing from him when they brought him to the rooftop, when they brought him to the top of the palace, and he looked down towards his death. They say that he was given a cup of water to drink, but every time he tried to drink the water, his blood would flow into the water because he was bleeding so much, until he said, "Thus I will meet my Lord thirsty." Thus he met his Lord like Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. He was told, "Greet your leader." He looked at Ibn Ziyad and said, "This is not my leader. Ibn Ziyad, you are no one to me. Wallahi, my leader is Hussein. Amiri Husseinun wa ni'mal amir, surur al-fu'ad al-bashir al-nadir. Ibn Ziyad, you are not my leader." Ibn Ziyad told him, "Greet me or don't greet me, you will be killed." Muslim said, "I expect nothing else from someone like you. By God, I prayed that the most evil of God's creations would bring about my death. And yet you, Ibn Ziyad, more evil people than you have killed better people than me." Ibn Ziyad did not know what to think about this. Then Umar ibn Sa'ad al-Ain stepped forward, because he was there at that time. And Muslim said, "I have a last will. I have some last words. I know that you are going to kill me, but at least do these things for me before I die." So they listened. Muslim said, "One, take my horse, take my sword. Please sell them. I have debts to the people of Kufa. I've been here. I've been borrowing money. Please pay them back." He said, "Yes, we will do this for you. This is fair." Muslim said, "After I die, please bury me. Don't drag me through the streets. Don't mutilate my body. Just lay me to rest." At that, Ibn Sa'ad got angry. He said, you have no control over what we do. You don't tell us what to do." And that was as it happened. And 3, Muslims said, "Please, Write a letter to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. Write a letter to my master Hussein. Tell Hussein the people of Kufa have betrayed him. Tell Hussein not to come to Kufa. Kufa is not safe for you. Kufa is not safe for your women. Kufa is not safe for your children. Oh, Abu Abdullah, do not come here. It is my fault you've come to Kufa. Go. But they did not do that. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم العظم العز الجل الأكرم يا الله 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 إلهي بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها بديها والسر المستودع فيها يا الله اكشف عنا السوء. Oh Allah, remove from us all distress. اقضي حوائج المحتاجين. Ya Allah, accept the hajat of those who are in need. شافي وعافي جميع المرضى. Ya Allah, heal all those who are sick. اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا. Oh Allah, forgive our sins. كفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. And raise us among the righteous. اللهم أحينا حياة محمد وآل محمد وأمتنا مماتهم وارزقنا شفاعتهم. Oh Allah, make us live the lives of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. When we die, make us die like the family of Muhammad and all in Muhammad, and grant us their intercession. Allahumma ajjali waliyaka al-faraj. Oh Allah, bring back the Mahdi وجعلنا من شيعته وأنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه, and let us be his helpers and supporters and martyrs in his cause. وإلى الأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات, and Surah al-Fatiha for those who have passed on. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, the next part of the program is a short talk. Today we have Sahar Moji. Please welcome with loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sahar, and I'm currently a student at the University of Cambridge, and I'm studying politics. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about the legacy of Imam Hussein in the student encampments that are going on in support of Palestine. So obviously it's been difficult not to draw parallels between the events of Karbala and the plight of the Palestinian people. The scenes from Gaza over the last 8-9 months have been apocalyptic. Over 40,000 dead, 14,000 children, including hospitals, schools, aid centers destroyed, millions trapped on the brink of starvation. In the mothers screaming in pain, carrying the limpless body of their child, we see the faces of Ali Asghar and his mother Rubab. The men searching through the rubble, taking all means possible to ensure their families survive. We see Hazrat Abbas. And in their strength and their perseverance and their exemplary moral conduct and their steadfast belief in the truth, we see the embodied spirit of our dear Hussein. But we must also draw parallels, not just between the events themselves, but a moral comparison. What does the story of Karbala teach us about our own moral duty to take an active stand against injustice, an unwavering commitment to the values of truth and righteousness? what does it mean to draw from Karbala a universal message against oppression on a worldwide scale. And over the last 8 months, subhanAllah, we've witnessed the growth of a mass movement, a global determination to fight against the forces of oppression and to end Western complicity and advocate for justice and liberation for the Palestinian people. And a key part of that has been the student encampments that have spread across UK universities. Students have set up camps on university land, they've occupied university buildings, and they are refusing to leave until their demands are met. And those demands, simply put, are disclose. So we want universities and institutions to be transparent about where our tuition fees are going and their investments are going. We want them to then divest from all investments in arms companies that are complicit in not just the genocide in Palestine, but mass atrocities across the world. We want them to protect Palestinian students, Muslim students, Arab students against Islamophobia, against anti-Arab and anti-Muslim hatred. And we want them then to reinvest in Palestinian people and in Palestinian academia and in decolonizing knowledge production. So those are, simply put, our four demands, and students are not leaving until those are met. And so it's really hard to put into words what spaces like these mean, and the power they embody and what they symbolize. Alhamdulillah, I'm really blessed to have been a small part of the Cambridge encampment. And it's set up outside one of the most iconic, kind of infamous university buildings in the center of town. It's quite a grand building that was actually built off the backs of colonial wealth and the labor of black and brown people, and is now being occupied by their ancestors, which I think would have made those people turn in their graves. And just to give you an insight into what the encampment looks like, there's over kind of 40 tents laid out in front of this big building, and there's colourful banners draped all over the walls. With slogans like divest from genocide. We have a group in Cambridge called Cambridge Jews for Justice. We've got slogans called Down with Occupation. And it's a really kind of big setup. So we have a dining table for food. We have a liberation library with kind of array of books covering political, social, theological issues. We even have a study space because the encampment was set up during exam term where all the students had exams to work towards, so people were studying in the camp. And we even have now a community garden which we grow fruit and vegetables in, and also a toilet for kind of emergency use. And every day at the camp, we have various lectures and kind of talks on topics ranging from anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism to Palestinian resistance to conditions under apartheid, and we have daily sit-ins, vigils, and to commemorate those who've lost their lives. And we have protests to make as much noise as possible and shout for freedom from the top of the rooftops of Cambridge and educate and inform passers-by. And something that's often overlooked is the immense community and solidarity that's been built, and the beauty of such a space, which is kind of difficult to, I guess, express. But I guess an anecdote to kind of encapsulate that is on Fridays, every Friday we have Jummah at the encampment, and the khutbah is often given on kind of an Islamic approach to justice, liberation, politics. And then around 1.5, 2 hours later, we then all sit down for Shabbat dinner, Friday night dinner with a lot of the Jewish people that come to the camp. We sit around in a circle, we break bread, we join in their prayers, and their prayers often draw on similar themes to the khutbahs that were kind of given earlier on in the day. And then the circle breaks and we do Maghrib and Isha. So you can kind of see that, where else, what other space can you think of where this would be a daily occurrence? Only here, where people are brought together in grief, in anger, in hope, in a shared commitment to peace, to universal justice. Only in such a space can that knowledge be shared and those cultures bleed and we become one. And it's here that we see the spirit of our Ahlul Bayt and our dear Imam Hussein. Come rain or shine, students, individuals, families living in Cambridge are there 24/7, steadfast in the face of attempts to silence them and to suppress their right to freedom of expression. Although not in the same scale as the US, students across the UK have faced heavy police presence and a lot of violence, especially in Newcastle and Oxford. Disciplinary action from universities, legal action ongoing to evict students from their own campuses. And the camp itself is an organizational feat. There's about 15 to 20 different WhatsApp chats, lots of different teams. We all have code names. Mine is Hummingbird. Alhamdulillah, I'm lucky to be on the press team, so that's what I've been doing, kind of trying to use the media attention, especially Cambridge gets, to amplify the voices of the Palestinian people, to issue press releases, and sometimes to take a more silent approach. I don't know if you've seen the clip of GB News. And at Cambridge, whilst they are yet to agree to our demands, we did use the collective resistance to force their hands into sitting down with us at the negotiation table. So we spread our occupation to the building where the graduations take place. And then we managed to then kind of get them to sit down, and we now have regular negotiation meetings. And we've seen the history of student activism and movements with the civil rights movement, with the movement against South African apartheid. It demonstrates that collective action, public mobilization really does work, and it shows what happens and what is possible when we put a cause above else and come together. And several universities in the UK, including Queen College, Belfast, and Goldsmith University, have now formally divested. So change is in the air, and it's possible. And something really important we've also seen is the Muslim community mobilizing. So University ISOCs holding prayers and events at the encampment, wider community support. We have Cambridge Families for Palestine, where their families will bring their kids every day to the encampment to just kind of sit around and talk. We have donations, so many donations from food from the local community. And, you know, Hussein and the tragedy of Karbala shows that victory is not achieved by superiority in numbers or military might, but in steadfastness, compassion, and the pursuit of justice and truth. But we need more from our community. We have an obligation to take an active stand, to engage with and protest our political system. It's very easy for us to talk the talk, and whilst raising awareness and discussing is so important, I can't reiterate that enough. As a community, we have to go further. We have to be active. We need to take concrete action. Hussein's legacy, the power that it holds, it speaks to so many so powerfully centuries later, because his words, his beautiful message of justice, of compassion, was accompanied by the action that he took to preserve and emulate the beauty of those words, and the action he took to unify the people and resist the tyranny of Yazid, all in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And just to finish, we recall how Hussein called out on the fields of Karbala, is there anyone to help us? And he was met with silence from those who should have supported him. And this is an echo of the timeless struggle for justice, which in the case of the Palestinian people remains unanswered. The tragedy of both Karbala and the Palestinian struggle lies in the silence and complicity of those who look away, whose rhetoric is empty and unaccompanied by action. So silence and inaction is not an option. It's our purpose in our mission to emulate the Ahlul Bayt, Hussein, Prophet Muhammad subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fight for justice must persist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sahar. That was the first of two of our talks on activism. Tomorrow we'll be having a talk about embodying liberation. The next part of our program is a Marshiya. Please welcome again Sahar with Salawat ala Muhammad wa alihi.
high prospects, duties he did not neglect, abandoned hopes to protect the faith that he did respect. Through sacrifice, Qasim began life with plans to triumph, to make something of his time here. He could though but see future destiny, his wishes and dreams in this world. But the atmosphere turned tense. Deep inside him he did sense. He prepared for a defense against foes' heartless offense. Cruel tragedy, tragedy. How his outlook changed, his path rearranged to serve his uncle in this life. To battle he rode, fear he never showed, knowing that freedom we would gain. Paying the ultimate price, he confronted all the lies, his lamentable demise. From it justice would arise to exalt truth, exalt truth. Champion so young, his message had rung in the hearts of the population. This action maintained, message of Hussein will live through to the end of time, until occultation ends and he from heaven descends. The righteous he will befriend, guilty he will apprehend. Our Mahdi, Mahdi. Though a youth with high prospects, duties he did not neglect. Through sacrifice, sacrifice. Salawat.
زيارة. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا نبي الله. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا محمد بن عبد الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك وعلى زوجة الوفية الغراء خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين. السلام عليك وعلى ابن عمك أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صير رسول رب العالمين. السلام عليك وعلى بضعتك الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليك وعلى ولديك الإمامين الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك وعلى أئمة المسلمين من ذرية ولدك الحسين علي السجاد محمد الباقر وجعفر الصادق وموسى الكاظم وعلي الرضا محمد الجواد وعلي الهادي والحسن العسكري والحجة ابن الحسن المهدي. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا صاحب الزمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك واجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك والمستشهدين بين يديك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. فصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وآل الطيبين الطاهرين.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله